Hello, my name is Pablo Arias. I am with International Relocation Partner. With this is the company that I funded that helps people move internationally, particularly removals or international moving services. And in all these 14 years of helping people, I do realize people need more than just shipping a container across the sea to move to another country. And I decided to start working on a community for you guys, a community that can provide information for you guys to learn what's out there before you even start your move, years before. And today we are with Sally Pederson. She is the founder of Global Citizen Life, and she's an expert on what to do before you. I will put it this way: she's an expert on asset diversification, citizen diversification, and his entire background is to help people, how to live a life abroad, minimize your taxes, and how to protect your assets with different, governments, and kind of eliminating those borders that we're all used to, and helping us think outside the box. Perhaps you are located in Canada and then you're fixed into the Canada government rules, but why are you fixed? Corporations all the time, they have, businesses all over the globe with corporations in perhaps Panama, Uruguay, UK, and they're doing their best, and they use all of these different legislations to minimize taxes. So those are the type of things Sally can help us understand and achieve. Sally, say hi.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope to give some valuable information to your listeners.
I'm very excited. As I was telling you, this is a particular topic that I have personal interest. I do have corporations in four different countries. So I have banking in different countries, and I do believe it's a smart move for a business owner, as you know, as a business owner, be able to hire people. We have, like our biggest offices in Nicaragua, so hire people local in Nicaragua with an office, corporations, banking. It's a great asset for my business, and be able to build my customers. Most of my customers, I'll say 70% of my customers are going to be from United States. This is a big chunk of customers. So be able to build them directly with the local bank account in the United States makes a lot of sense for me, and makes it easier for them. And they can pay us locally with a credit card, or locally with the ACH. There's a lot of benefits of diversifying your banking, your finances. And also, I have personal interest on, getting another residency, perhaps a residency with a stronger passport that allows me to travel easier to many other destinations without having to request a visa. Now, please, before we start into this topic, and I let everybody know how we got connected. I'm a speaker for international living on the topic for international shipping and customs. I done it in Costa Rica, Panama, and Mexico. And when they make these conferences, they need a professional to talk about international shipping. And in the context on our last in the last conference, uh, you came out very strongly with all this knowledge of information, all this wealth of information, and I thought this is super interesting, and we should share more to our listeners more about this. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And I know you lived in many different countries, but we want our audience to understand more.
Absolutely. So originally from Canada, I've lived in Costa Rica, Spain, Montenegro. I'm currently looking to relocate to my next destination. And my
Mm,
journey kind of started before even moving to Costa Rica, where I had a bit of an issue with the government in Canada, where they were doing an audit, and I was fine with it. I was like, whatever, it's random audits. All governments do them all the time. And I had, before I had moved to Costa Rica, I had a property down there. So it was being rented. So I claimed my rental income, and I also claimed the expenses of the caretaking and the pool maintenance and, regular expenses that you have when you have rental property. Well, long story short, whoever my auditor was had decided that they were going to allow my income to be credited to my taxes, but they were not allowing any of my
mm,
expenses So therefore, they redid my taxes and told me I owed them a sum of money. And because it was from 2 years previous, they also added 2 years of interest on top of that. So, needless to say, I felt it was very unfair. I was not happy. And I decided at that point, I'm going to figure this out and learn the rules of the government and start to play by their rules because it just wasn't fair.
Hmm.
And then deciding to move to Costa Rica and different places, I started to learn about how taxes work. And I don't have to be incorporated in the country that I'm in because I used to think, well, I live in Canada, I need to have my corporation in Canada. But that's not true. And then finding out that different countries have different corporate tax rates and taxes in some cases too are kind of like mortgages where there's the posted rate of what they say they're going to charge, but sometimes if you come in as a foreigner you pay less or there's a flat tax, and things like that. Some countries don't charge taxes on money that you make outside of the country, and so
Mhm.
there's a lot of different rules within taxes on a per country basis. So I got to know about those, and obviously moving and living in different countries, I've got to know about citizenships and residency programs. And a big one is banking. Even if your listeners here today aren't business owners, it really is still important to have a second bank account in another country. For a number of reasons. One of the big ones where I really started to tell people it was important was during the pandemic, there was the trucker protest in Canada,
I
and
remember.
some of those people had their bank accounts frozen. And some people who even donated to help the truckers had their bank accounts frozen. And I just thought it's crazy. And so that's when I really realized how imperative it was for people to have another bank account. And of course, there's other issues of potential hacking, identity theft, and other things like that. So it's there during the pandemic has really kind of catapulted me into doing a lot more of what I was doing and really trying to get the information out there that you don't have to be a multimillionaire or a millionaire to do the things that the millionaires do and how they save money on taxes and have multiple bank accounts and protection.
And that's exactly what I was saying. I have a very small business. I have to be like what 8 employees, very small business.
Mhm.
They're mainly based in Nicaragua and in Costa Rica, a couple of employees, one in Mexico, one in Guatemala, very small little company. And I start thinking about this idea 6, 7 years ago when I find out it was so hard for me to hire the best possible talent within the small local country I am right now in Costa Rica. So when I get the best
Mhm.
possible talent, what do I do? Then I hire somebody as a freelancer in Chile. She ended up working as a freelancer, as a sales executive, and ended up being all right. But then I start testing with the idea, and then I found somebody that she ended up becoming my operations manager in Nicaragua. So, and a small business can do it. A very small business can do it. But you're saying now that a single individual can do the same thing, and it's just a matter of information. And we all think it's so expensive that we cannot afford it. That's kind of like the issue. A lot of people think, well, how much is that going to cost me? Like it's got $15,000 to do. People think about these things. Maybe it is. I don't know. In my personal case, it wasn't that expensive to open all of these different corporations in different countries and be able to start doing what I do. And I don't think it is that expensive. People think maybe IBM or Nike or Toyota they can do it because they are huge corporations, but that's not the reality.
Well,
No, I
and
not
to honestly, the more money you have, the more businesses you own, the more diversification you want, the more it is going to cost because it does get more complicated with the more that you have. So they do spend millions of dollars mapping
yeah.
everything out and making sure it's done right, but it's saving them multiple millions of dollars. And so when you don't have massive companies, you don't have to have such a complex plan as those multimillionaires and billionaires do. We have less company, less money, less things that we need, and so the cost of it um, it is a lot less. And of course, it depends too, because every country, the cost is different to incorporate in. And so that's just something for people to take into consideration, that there is an incorporation cost, and it does vary from country to country.
I would say it's very smart to prepare ahead before you get, bite or hit by your local government.
Hmm.
And you were telling me your personal experience. They took taxes out of you that they wasn't supposed to take these taxes.
That's right.
I want to ask you a really personal, like honest question. How do that make you feel?
I
What
mean,
was
I
the
was I
feeling?
was really upset about it because I just couldn't believe, like, I did everything right. I was honest. I claimed the income. I could have just said, "No, I don't. I don't even have that property," because it was in another country. It would have been
Hmm.
very hard for them to prove that I'd owned something, and the home was in a corporation. So it could have been quite challenging, but I was like, "No, I'm going to be honest. I have this property. I am making money off of it. I do have these expenses." Just as I did, I had rental property in Canada, so the exact same things. And I couldn't believe it. It was just so unfair. So it made me angry, and I just thought, if they're going to be that unfair, then I'm going to learn the rules and I'm going to play by their rules, and they're not going to get more money from me.
That's interesting. That's interesting when you say I'm going to learn the rules. I have this question, and some people may have the same question. Is it a little bit illegal to just try to hide where your money is located, kind of going offshore? I know it's not, because I do it somehow. I do this, uh, but
It's what people.
I want your take on this.
Mhm. I mean, thank you to the movies and TV and things like that. You know, tax evasion is absolutely illegal. If you're
All
not
right.
declaring money that you're making, that's tax evasion. That's completely illegal. But some people would say this is more of tax avoidance, and it's avoid having to pay more. We're still filing. So whether my or corporation is, lots of people think right away of no tax countries like Dubai. They have some taxes now in certain regions,
Hmm.
or the Cayman Islands. They just think, if I go to the Cayman Islands, I can open up a bank account there. All my money goes there, and I never have to do anything. Well, that's not true. I mean, you still have to file taxes, and as a business owner, you want to know where your money's going out and coming in. So you still have to file taxes, or file paperwork showing and stating where your money's coming in and going out. So it's not just, oh, I open up a corporation and woo, I don't have to do any paperwork and it's a done deal. With terrorism, money laundering, those countries also have laws, but just because you don't pay taxes there doesn't mean that you don't have to be filing documents and paperwork. And also, people need to take into consideration too. They say, well, if I move my company to, let's say, the Cayman Islands, it's no tax. Well, I can make more money and I'll have more for myself. That's possible, but you also have to think, when you pay yourself that money, now that's personal income. And you do get taxed on personal income depending upon where you live. So you can't just say, oh, well, it's corporate money and I don't have to pay taxes anymore, because then you're getting into tax evasion, which then is illegal,
Hmm.
and you could go to jail.
And it all depends on which country you're in. I also start seeing a
Hmm.
trend that is basically renouncing to your country. Have you seen this?
Hmm.
People
Yes,
actually,
renouncing
maybe
citizenship.
Americans actually would say, delete me from the American
Mhm.
list, delete me from the Canadian list. I'm not a Canadian anymore. Is that even
It
possible?
happens occasionally, more so with the United States, and that's because the United States will attempt to tax you anywhere you choose to live in the world. So they do have a bit of an exemption, and I think currently right now it's $120,000. If you make anything over $120,000 per year, the United States government expects you to pay taxes on
Mhm.
anything over that, and you have to. If you have bank accounts anywhere in the world, you have to file what's called an F bar. It's a document just saying, yes, I have money elsewhere in the world. This is my bank account, because they want to know and track all the money you're making and where it's at. But other countries like Canada, once you're no longer a tax resident in Canada, you don't have to be filing documents and tax returns and things like that. You just, for me, so it's just like I'm just now a tax resident in the country where I'm a tax resident. You can have multiple residencies, but I'm only a tax resident in one country, and that's where I pay my taxes. It's none of Canada's business anymore, and that's where the United States is very different.
Yeah.
And the only way to stop it or prevent it is to give up your citizenship, renounce your citizenship, give back your passport. But what they also do is they will look at what you own and make one final tax on you to pay them taxes. They call the exit tax to
My
make sure they
God.
get money. And you also have to pay to renounce your citizenship.
God, they gotta get their
They
money.
they don't they don't
Yeah.
wanna let you go. They try to get their claws so deep
Oh
into
my
people to
God.
never let them go, but it
Now,
can be done, but proper planning is very important.
oh, I talked about it with a few customers, kind of like this topic a little bit, and I mentioned this. What about maybe you could just leave the states, renounce to your citizenship, and more often than not, they will say no. They will wanna keep it. They will wanna keep their because it's a safety net, or for whatever reason they can always go back. Whatever. It's an interesting. Now, when we were talking about your topic, your area of expertise, I can see kind of like maybe three challenges, three main things, or three
Mhm,
main areas where you can help people. And correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you know provide a little bit more of context. I'll say the first one is if I'm looking to diversify my money and pay less taxes. The first one is uh, banking abroad, the banking part, uh, you know,
well,
having
with the mhm,
yeah, but having bank accounts in other places where you can store money, that's kind of like a big part of this. Um, with
mhm.
that, a lot of countries would not allow you just to open a bank account. I have bank accounts in different countries, and it took me a lot of time and energy. I hire a local attorney, getting a residence agent to kind of represent me, things like that. What
And
do you
it
see
it
as the
really
biggest
does
challenge?
it really depends on the country, and they are getting a little bit harder and harder to do,
Hmm.
um, but depending and, like, with banking, it's so strange because I know of situations where it's the same banking company, but a different branch of the same company will have different rules, which is it's absurd. You would think if you were going to say like a Scotia Bank, an HSBC or whatever, that all of those banks in that country would have the same rules. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes branches have different rules.
Mm.
I know a girl, she was just on my podcast the other day. She opened up a bank account in Istanbul with just her passport, no residency, no utility bill, no anything like that. But she went
Wow.
to three different branches. One, they didn't even acknowledge her. Like she said, they wouldn't even talk to her. I can't remember what the second one, and then the third one, there was an English speaking manager there. Oh yeah, sure, no problem. We can open an account for you. And so it really makes a big difference from branch to branch, which is crazy. Being in person makes it more helpful. There's still a few that will do remotely, but then of course you're having a lawyer, more documents need to be done because they want to make sure that you actually exist. You are you, you have a legitimate job, you make money, you're not going to be doing any kind of money laundering, supporting terrorism, those types of things. And with what's going on in the world right now, they do become a little bit more strict with things, but like anything, having patience, and having some time, those things can be done.
No, in my
And there's
case,
some
took
online
a
ones
while.
too that are really becoming popular, depending upon where you live. N26 is a great one. Revolut is another one. Wise is great as well. So those are more online ones. The downfall with those is you can't actually go in anywhere and put money or cash into the bank, but it's good if you have accounts to move around and transfer, and then you can still pay bills and use just as you would any debit card.
No, it took a little while for me to get banking other places. It was hard. My personal opinion, or is like it took me for me to go make contact relationships. I was traveling to these destinations for a whole lot, so it takes a lot of energy. So it makes it
Mhm,
makes a lot of sense to have someone that has got these connections and knowledge and contacts, because
mhm,
I didn't have nobody that can help me with these things. I was just like, I'm flying, I'm visiting the country, I'm staying here. I was staying for longer periods of time, and I end up getting banking in different places without having to become a citizen in Panama,
mhm.
without having to become a citizen of the United States, which we also have banking. Now, talking about citizen, isn't that something that you also helping with the, you know, getting your customer to know, how to get the residency, or also maybe helping them choose what is their best fit for which country better fit their particular needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people really need to kind of think about what do they really want long term. There's some individuals that don't care about having citizenship somewhere else. And so just to clarify the difference between residency and citizenship, in a nutshell, like residency allows you to live in a place to come and go kind of as much as you want. Citizenship gives you more responsibilities in one way and more possibilities as well. So you have the right to vote when you're a citizen. You need to be careful for younger viewers or those who may have kids or grandkids if they want to pass down that citizenship. That could be great, but is it within a country that has mandatory military service? How
Hmm.
do you feel about that? So that's one thing to
I don't know.
consider for certain countries. And then, of course, having that passport, because passports, we initially think that it's great for travel, which it is. I mean, we cannot travel without a passport. Some passports allow us to travel easier to more countries than others. But also, the thing about having a second passport is if for some reason your home government decides not to renew your passport, because as we've been told in the past, we do not own our passport. Our passports are property of the government. They are a privilege to have, not a right. And it's up to them if they want to give you a passport or not. And
Hmm.
so, if for some reason, identity theft, you help out in a protest, I mean, who knows? Because the world's getting a little crazy. If they decide that they don't want to renew your passport, you can't travel. Even if you have permanent residency somewhere, you can't leave the country with a permanent residency. So you have to have a passport. And that's why it's important. And more people are starting to look at having a second, third. I even know some people that have 4 or 5 passports because if something happens with any one of them, they have the ability to still travel and they have the ability to move freely, to travel, to maybe some it could be better than their own home passport to go to more countries easier. So there's a number of reasons why, and so it really is talking to people and figuring out kind of what is their long term, what do they really want, and then deciding for them what would be the best route, and then of course with all passports, there's different ways to get them, and then going into details about the pros and cons, I guess, of how to get each one. Some cost a lot of money, some take a long time. So there's a number of different ways.
Now, and within your services, one thing is international banking or international financing, uh, or the finance part, uh, to lower your taxes. The other thing is the immigration part, residency or visa, getting another passport, and that's
Mhm.
is a safety net. Both, I will say,
Yes.
is a safety net to protect you. This is asset protection, or you're
Mhm.
protecting yourself. Something happened in your particular country, then you may want to change where you live. And I was we were talking about this before we start. It's we deal with, and this is my particular case, I deal with a lot of people who are retiring in Costa Rica, Panama. They are retiring in Mexico or Portugal and Spain. And a lot of them don't even think about these details. They are thinking about, I'm going to retire, I'm going to retire, I'm 40 years old, I'm going to retire. Maybe when they're 55 or 60, they get to do these things.
Mhm.
But if you're thinking about retiring abroad to save money because the exchange or the currency in pesos in Mexico will make your money stretch and give you a lot more for your hard-earned dollars. If you're thinking about these things, why are you not thinking about start preparing the immigration part, or the banking and all that? I think is a very smart approach if you're thinking about retiring. um, Now, the last question I have before we go is: do you also help a little bit with the investment? If somebody comes to you with for investment advice.
Yeah, we can help with that depending upon what they want. We've got partners, so it could be, are you wanting to invest in real estate that's just an investment? I have some people that want to invest in different countries. They never plan on being there. They just know that the real estate's the way they want to go. Also, to another good reason sometimes for residencies or citizenship and the banking is it allows you to invest in different corporations, different kind of stock exchanges or different things that are in different countries. Some countries you can't buy property without being a resident. Sometimes some will allow you to buy stocks within their stock exchange. And I mean,
Hmm.
some of them around the world aren't really worth having, and some are have some potential to them as well. And it's diversifying. So it really does depend on what a person wants and then putting them in touch with the right people to help because I am not a tax specialist. I'm not a tax attorney. So I just help people and I put them in contact with the right people in the right country when it comes to taxes, because taxes for each country is so complicated. And investments can be complicated as well. So it's knowing that you're getting the right advice from the right people. So I have a team of people that I work with around the globe that I sit down with, and I we Skype, of course, is great for that, and work together to put together a plan based on what the people want. And for some, it is just very simple in the fact of they just want to retire, they just want to move abroad, they want to have a home, they want to, put some money in and maybe a few investments or something just to keep them living comfortably for their retirement. Up into some that are in their younger years and they want to completely diversify. They want to be in several countries. They want to have all kinds of investments all over the world. And that does get a little bit more complex, but it can be done. So it really depends on what the person really wants, what they want to be left to their family, if that's an option, or to pass down, like with the citizenship. Some of them can be passed down to their children and grandchildren, even if they're adults now. They can
Hmm.
do that. So it's really sitting back and thinking about what do they want? What is the best way to go about getting what they want? And what really are the options? Because some people may think that they have a lot of options available, but when they get down into the details and requirements of stuff, maybe
Hmm.
those options aren't the best for them. And another thing that we're seeing, as we talked a little bit about earlier, is people think that they have time. Oh, when I retire in 2 years, 3 years, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to move here and I'm going to do that. You gotta be careful with that because Portugal recently has been a prime example of getting rid of their golden visa program, and also they just announced that they're canceling their D7 visa, which was a fantastic opportunity for no taxes for 10 years, then a flat tax for a while after that, and they just said, "We don't need it anymore. Our economy is doing great. Prices of housing is going through the roof. Our people are getting angry about it. We
Hmm.
have enough people here. We don't need to do this anymore. Starting next year, these things are done."
Hmm.
And then and we can see that happening with other countries, that changes are being made. One that's never really talked about is the Netherlands. They have a golden visa program, but it's 1.25 million. So it's a
Hmm.
lot. But they're even with that, they're ending it. They're like, "No, we don't need that anymore." And so we need to kind of think ahead of time because the things that we may want to do that are available now may not be available in 1, 3, or definitely 5
A
years
few
from
years.
now.
So if you're thinking about, doing moving abroad, investing abroad, paying less taxes or diversifying your finances, maybe this is the right time to start doing something about it and learn about it. At least have a close look of this information is available out there. Sally can help you. Sally, how can our listeners, and the people that see this, can reach out to you?
Probably through my website is the best way, and it's globalcitizenlife.org. I am also on Instagram, and Facebook, and Twitter. Generally best. And we do have a podcast too that people can listen to. I talk with business owners from around the world and people who are expats and have moved, and talking about the kind of great things that they've done and some of the challenges that they've had to overcome, either by diversifying, moving abroad. So globalcitizenlife.org is our website, and that would be the best place for people to reach me.
So that's amazing. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I just want before we go, I want to remind everyone that the expat community is a new effort that we're doing for the expat community in Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico, Spain, Portugal, the countries that we're servicing in. In Costa Rica and Panama, we already have. In all of the Hispanic countries, we already have, things like Spanish classes free for our audience. So for Costa Rica, today is at 3:30. Spanish classes for Panama is at 4:30, and in different countries. So if you want to connect to our Spanish classes, we also have a newsletter that are local news translated into English. So if you have issues trying to, get to know what's happening locally in the country you are moving into, you can subscribe to our newsletter at the expatcommunity.com /news. And we'll be doing a lot more with the expat community meetups, networking events in different countries and cities around the globe. And I want to see you guys there. Thank you so much, Sally. Bye bye.
Thank you.